Alright, what's going on, guys? Well, it is that time of year once again, where we ask the big question, is this finally the time when the second great hollowing comes to an end? Will we finally see Elden Ring DLC shown at the Game Awards in 2023? Now, you guys know over the last 2 years, I've been given my fair share of speculation about when I thought it was going to drop and analyzing every single hint that comes out, and I do have to say, after all of that time and all of that analysis, things have never looked better than they do now. So today I want to go over absolutely everything we know, every hint we have, explain how this year is very different than last year when we thought we were going to get a major expansion then, and then give you my honest verdict about if we'll see it at all, and if so, what. So as we get into that today, first off, let me say that I am going to be streaming the Game Awards right here on the channel, so if you want to get a live reaction to everything, hopefully including the Shadow of the Erdtree trailer, then make sure you're subscribed, not only so you don't miss the notification, but to also stay up to date on all things Elden Ring and FromSoftware. But with all that, let's go ahead and break this down. I think the best way to go about this is to work backwards, because some of the most promising news has come out more recently, and overall this does a much better job at framing the big picture. The most significant piece of info comes from Geoff Keighley himself. Now, I'm sure Geoff Keighley needs no introduction for those of you who keep up with gaming news, but he is the big man behind it all. He is the host and organizer of the Game Awards and Summer Games Fest, and is the one who makes a lot of decisions in deciding what gets shown and how the show plays out. Although on a side note here, he is not the one that decides the awards, just to put that out there. But over the past few months, he has been doing a lot to secure big showcases and announcements at the show to make it as good of an event as possible. And one of the ways he went about doing that was by taking a trip to Japan, where he visited several places such as Capcom, Kojima Productions, as well as FromSoftware. On September 26, he tweeted out, "It was very special to spend time with FromSoftware and see the brand new office and the team's well-earned The Game Awards statues. Thank you for your hospitality." He then went on to clarify the reason for this trip, saying, "Wrapped up an incredible couple of weeks in Japan visiting developers and talking the Game Awards, Summer Games Fest, and more. There's so much amazing work being done in Japan. I fly home feeling inspired and excited by where games are going in the future." And this was one of the biggest signs we got that we have a chance of seeing DLC at TGA. And while I am going to be making some assumptions here, Geoff Keighley and FromSoftware both know exactly what fans are going to think when they see something like this. Now, is this 100% confirmation? No. But let's be honest here, if they didn't want us getting these assumptions, then he wouldn't have posted that. But what this does give us is a definite connection between Geoff Keighley and FromSoftware under the umbrella of talking about the Game Awards, with enough time before the show to prepare a trailer. Now, the most recent news happening just over a week ago is that FromSoftware has started a massive hiring spree, with the focus being on multiple new projects, and they are hiring for nearly every position in the company. A reasonable conclusion that we came to after hearing this was that this is a pretty solid sign that development on the DLC is likely wrapping up, and that is again an assumption, but we know that FromSoftware works on roughly 3 projects at a time, and if they are beginning multiple new projects, then that means at least one is either finished or about to be, and the only project that we know they've officially been working on is Elden Ring DLC, so you can see how we come to that conclusion. But also at this time, the official Kadokawa financial report, which details business activities for FromSoftware and other subsidiaries of Kadokawa, gave us some minor details on the status of DLC, stating the release timing of DLC for Elden Ring has not yet been announced, but development is proceeding smoothly. So we can't really take much away from that, aside from the fact that it's probably not been delayed. And given the status of this report, this was the best language they could use, so we can't look at this and say, oh, it's not wrapping up or it's still in development, which means it must be far away. They aren't at liberty to even hint about that. So all that's really doing is putting our minds at rest that yes, it is indeed still coming. Prior to that news, I shared this over on Twitter. Unverified sources are telling me that Elden Ring DLC is planned to be shown at the Game Awards with a release date of February 5th, 2024. These sources have shown signs of insight, but nothing concrete. Consider this just a rumor for now. And for context, this was shared with me before Geoff Keighley posted his trip to FromSoftware, which was interesting to say the least. Now, as I stated in that tweet, these are not verified insiders that were saying this. These were people that reached out to me personally that definitely seemed like they had insider knowledge and were very careful about the things they shared. And they did pass all the tests I gave them when I shared fake leaks with them to test their legitimacy, or at least their honesty. And unfortunately, I can't go into any more detail about them, but they were very confident in that information. However, I do think a Monday release of February 5th sounds pretty fishy, but at least the idea of a trailer at TGA in an early February release, I think is a very safe bet. But moving on from that, we had an interview with Bandai Namco from the website gamesindustry.biz. And the first question they asked the Bandai Namco CEO is what their main focus of 2023 was, and how they plan to follow up the success of 2022 with Elden Ring's release. And to quote the article, the answer to that says, he first points to Elden Ring's DLC, the Shadow of the Erdtree, announced earlier this year and due to release soon. Now, I find it very interesting that this is the only question in the article that the interviewer chose not to directly quote the CEO. And that could mean a number of things, namely that either this is purely the interviewer's speculation on that release date quote, or the Bandai CEO said something that they didn't want directly published. But there's also the possibility that that was their exact answer, they just didn't use quotation marks in the article. Unfortunately for us, we have no way of knowing. But this is all of the most recent news we have. Before this, there was about a 5-month period where we heard absolutely nothing even hinting about DLC, aside from confirmation by insiders that the DLC was going to be massive, and that there had been an internal change of direction with how the DLC was going to be handled, which brings us to why 2022 was such a weird point. In the lead up to the Game Awards in the same year as Elden Ring's release, there were a lot of leaks pointing towards Armored Core 6 being FromSoftware's next game. And at that same time, after patch 1.07 dropped for Elden Ring, there was a plethora of unused files added to the game at the same time as that update, with the label DLC 01. And in those files were the entire Colloseums, several new hairstyles for characters, 2 new maps including a new legacy dungeon, asset locations for several new weapon types, as well as room for up to 30 new bosses. So you can see why when the Colosseum update came out shortly after that leak, and only a day or two before the Game Awards, it threw everyone off. Not only was this completely out of the blue, with the trailer dropping less than a day before its release, but it only actually gave us a small fraction of the content we found within the files. And the reason this was such a big deal was because this Colosseum update actually was considered Elden Ring DLC, both in name and internally from FromSoftware. And so that really screwed up all the evidence we had gotten up to that point, because yes, we technically did get Elden Ring DLC at the end of 2022, just as the signs had predicted, but not nearly the content we were expecting. But we would go on to get an explanation as to why. Elden Ring was originally planned to have 2 DLCs, one of which was going to be the Colosseums, but with a lot of retroactive updates to the original Elden Ring map, and the other was going to be the new content, the actual large-scale DLC. But for some reason unknown, that idea was scrapped, and now we're getting a full-on expansion in Shadow of the Erdtree, which we now know has been in active development since the game came out. So why does that change how we view this year's TGA? Last year, our only sources were from inside the game itself, and all the actual leaks and insider information was pointing towards Armored Core 6, which we ended up getting at TGA. But now the time of Armored Core 6 has passed. Elden Ring DLC has been officially confirmed and announced. We have verified leaks that Elden Ring DLC is the next release after Armored Core 6, and then all the info I mentioned earlier. We had none of that last year, and especially no connections to TGA. All we knew back then was that Elden Ring was getting some extra content, but now we have a full picture. So even though our speculation up to the point of the Colosseum update was warranted, and for the most part correct, the actual DLC 01 for Elden Ring was unprecedented in FromSoftware history, but now things are different. So with all that in mind, let me give you my honest prediction for TGA. First off, I think there is a 5% chance we get absolutely nothing for FromSoftware. I'm just keeping that as an open possibility, since in all reality it is. I do think it's extremely unlikely, especially since we know FromSoftware will be in attendance, since Armored Core 6 was nominated for Best Action Game. But if that does happen, I think we won't hear about DLC until February. Now, in the chance that we do get a Shadow of the Erdtree trailer, I'm giving that happening a 90% chance. I think it is extremely likely, I do think it's gonna happen, and we have good evidence to support it for all the reasons listed in this video. So I'll be very disappointed if it doesn't show up. So now you may have realized there's an extra 5% there, and I'm reserving that for the possibility that FromSoftware chooses to showcase a new game or DLC that is not for Elden Ring. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I have heard through the grapevine that there's more Armored Core on the way, but it is still not long after AC6's release. So again, I think that's extremely unlikely, but it is a possibility nonetheless. So this is my prediction for TGA. I do think Shadow of the Erdtree will be there, unless we have a repeat of last year and they shadow drop it a day before. But as it stands right now, I am very excited for the Game Awards. But y'all let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think it's gonna be there, or are we just huffing more copium? I'm very interested to read those comments. But anyways though guys, that is gonna pretty much do it for the video today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it down below and subscribe if you're new around here. Once again, we will be streaming TGA right here on the channel, so make sure you don't miss that. That will be happening on December 7th. But with all that, I will catch you in the next one.